Hi there. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hi, Della. We'll wait for let folks roll in. I'm wondering if anyone has participated in a Christmas bird count near them at all, or is planning to do that. Anyone planning to do? Yeah, Della, have you done that already, Della? Or are you planning it? It's gonna
I'm
happen.
planning it. It's the 27th,
Okay.
and I've never done it before.
Yay! That's great. Are they pairing you up with someone, or do you have an area that's just for you?
I hope they're pairing me up with somebody. I'm at Point Lobos State Park, which is quite a stretch of rocky shoreline.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how we'll count. It's always confusing to me. Do you count the birds over the ocean, or do you count the ones that are on the pathway or up in the trees? Where are the lines?
Yeah, I'm sure then that if you've never done it before, they're gonna likely give you the parameters because they'll
Yeah.
have like defined boundaries and stuff like that. I know for mine, I just was asking because we just did ours yesterday here in our
Mm.
county, and my area that I had there, you have to stay in certain areas. Like when you're kind of on the boundary of your area, you have to stay on one side of the road or the other. So if you see birds on the left side, you can't count them. If you see them on the right side, you can count them. So. Um, but then when you're in the middle, obviously you can count anything anywhere. But if you're on the edges of your
Mhm.
perimeter or your
Mhm.
boundary, then you can't. But yeah, it's really fun. So I encourage everybody if there's a bird count happening, a Christmas bird count happening in your area, which there is in pretty much almost just about every area. There's you can just join up with a local Audubon or your local bird club, and pair up with them. And yeah, they typically hook you up with someone who's been doing it for a while if it's your first time. And don't feel like if you're like, oh, I'm not such a good birder or whatever, it's okay. They pair you up with someone good, and you learn so much. You learn about your area, you learn about the birds, and often if you're with a good birder, then that's great. You get to learn about just some cool skills and stuff. So yeah, good job, Della. Thanks for sharing that, and I'm glad you're going for it. All right, cool. Well, let's see. We'll just I think we've got our crew of folks here. If this is anybody's first time, and we have a couple people here on Facebook with us, if this is your first time, then go ahead and find a comfortable seat somewhere inside or outside. Doesn't matter to me, wherever you feel most comfortable today. And we're going to do a mindfulness practice. So, the practices that I share with you, at times it might feel like, how is this related to birds, But what we're doing is I'm helping to train you to heighten your senses, your awareness, so that you can hear the birds, you can connect with the birds in a really deep way. And oftentimes, what people find is that they get better and better at seeing the birds and hearing the birds. They can hear them quicker, they can see them faster. And so, yeah, so you're just going to get to play along, listen in, and just get cozy. So find a cozy spot to sit. Thank you, everybody, for joining on Facebook. And hello, everybody on Zoom here. So once you found your cozy spot to sit, if you are inside and you can open a little, just crack a little window or something so you can at least hear the sounds that are outside, that'd be great. And it won't matter as much today because with our practice today, we're going to be sensing, we're going to be feeling into the world around us. So opening a window won't be as important, but it's always really nice. All right, so find your cozy spot. If you have a cup of tea or something like that, that's great too. Just let yourself settle in. And what I want you to do to start off with is just take stock of your body. Just notice the parts of your body that are feeling soft, the parts that are feeling connected, parts that might be feeling a little grouchy, maybe a little stiff and cranky. And maybe there's some parts that hurt, that really don't feel good. But just take all of it in. Do your best to not just focus on the things that aren't working or don't feel so good. Allow yourself to feel it all right now. And just notice, you don't have to judge or do your best to not allow judgment to come in, but just do your best just to notice what you're feeling in different parts of your body. And I always encourage people to turn their video on if you can. I love seeing who I'm talking to. If you're not in a position where you want to do that or can do that, that's just fine. Well, won't be as important until later when we start chatting a little bit. So we'll sit for about 30 minutes, And then we'll have an opportunity to ask questions and to talk after that. And if you do have your monitor on, you need to move around a bunch, then please just turn it off for the moment that you're moving around. All right, it's enough housekeeping for now. We'll get started. Okay, so go ahead, and now that you're cozy in your seat, just notice your connection with the earth below you. Whether you're able to have your feet on the earth or some other part of your body, it doesn't even matter. Even if you're in a high-rise building, the earth is still somewhere below you. So just notice your connection right now with the earth. What does that feel like for you? Great. And so I imagine that some of us have started to slow down a little bit. Maybe our breath and our rhythm has started to soften. So it's a great opportunity for us to now connect with our breath. And just notice, is it shallow? Is it deep? And with intention this time, you're going to take a nice deep breath in, filling your lungs, and then letting it go. And take another deep breath in, feeling all the way up to the crown of your head, and then letting it go, letting it just be soft. And then just allow yourself to find a nice rhythm with your breath. Some people like to count. They can count a rhythm in and count a rhythm out. You're welcome to do that if you want to. It's not necessary for this practice. Now you're going to move your attention. And so all the while, I'll be bringing in different senses for you to focus on, but do your best to not forget the other senses that we've already covered or already tapped into. So we're going to shift our awareness right now to our eyes. So if you've been here for a while, you know the drill. You're going to find a point off in the distance, just about as far as you can see, and then look for just one thing to focus on. For me right now, it's a leaf in a faraway tree, and I'm just going to focus on that leaf. And with all my attention focused on that leaf, I'm going to slowly allow my peripheral vision, my awareness to expand and to slowly open further and further outward. So you're going to go outward to the right and left, and then above and below. Just let your awareness expand with your eyes. But you're still focused in a sense on that one point. You're just softening your gaze all around that point. And then just notice what happens for yourself when you do that. Does anything happen within your body when you start to soften your gaze? Awesome. All right, so without losing that softened gaze, you're going to keep looking off in the distance, but now we're going to bring our sense of smell in. So we're going to get back to our breath and take a deep breath in, but this time with the intention of actually trying to smell the air in your environment right now. How many different layers of scent can you pick up on? It's great. Take one more nice deep breath in, smelling the air around you. And so if you've just started to join us, we're just bringing all of our senses to our awareness. We're softening our gaze out in front of us, noticing our breath, softening our breath, and softening our gaze. And so now that we've slowed down a little bit, softened our body, we're going to bring our awareness to our ears. So you're still looking forward, you're still looking at that point with a softened gaze, you're still noticing the scents that are on the air, you're still noticing your breath and your rhythm of your breath. But now start to bring in the sounds that are all around you. And sometimes it's easier for people to focus on, well, we can start right now with the loudest. That's often the most prominent. So notice where the loudest sound is coming from, how far away it may be from you, and what its quality is. And now go ahead and shift your awareness with your ears to a mid-range sound, not quite the quietest just yet, but something not as loud as the loudest, but just a few decibels down from that. And can you hold all of that in your awareness right now? The loudest, the next loudest. Now I'd like you to find a really quiet sound, something that's just really soft and gentle, almost even a whisper. So as we go through our practice today, we're going to tap into a deeper sense of our awareness. You're welcome to play along. You're welcome to try this on. You're also welcome to look for birds if you want to. If you see a bird, you want to look at it, you got your binoculars, then go for it. Definitely feel like you, oh yeah, see these transcripts? Oh, great. Sorry. Perfect. Sorry, someone was just asking for, and I can actually even turn captions on. Let me make sure they're turned on. Okay, great. So, let's get myself centered again. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out some different ideas to you today and asking you to feel them. And we all have different ways that we can sense something that's around us. We might hear, maybe it's an image that comes to our mind, maybe it's a feeling in our body. You're welcome to do this with your eyes closed. You certainly don't have to, but some people find that it heightens your other senses when your eyes are closed. So you're welcome to do that. And I just want to remind you that, again, this is just practice. We're just learning right now, but it is possible to develop this sixth sense in a sense. And Suzanne shared an experience with us last week of how she was able to virtually feel the eyes of her birds. She was inside, she hadn't opened her windows yet, but she could feel the birds looking in saying, "Feed me, you haven't put the feed out yet." And I've heard many stories from people. I had a friend years ago who, as a young boy, was able to know that there was a deer outside. He could feel the deer walking by his kitchen, and he just got up and he looked out the window. He was behind him, and he got up and he looked out the window, and there was a deer walking by. And so we can learn to pick up this sense. And anyway, so that's what we're going to practice today. So as we're sitting here, being aware of all the senses we've just tapped into, I want you to start first. We'll start with one that, we'll just start with sort of a bigger image maybe. So what I want you to do, if your eyes are closed, that's great. And if not, it's okay too. Just if your eyes are open, maybe just keep your eyes looking forward. Don't necessarily try to look for what I'm going to describe, but just see how your body might perceive it. So I want you to imagine, or just try to find with your body, the nearest mammal. Now, if you have a house cat or a house dog or maybe a house mouse, whatever it may be, if you have a pet, let's say, let's not focus on them at the moment, but just think that there is a mammal likely somewhere out in the landscape right now. Even if you're in the city, there's probably a squirrel somewhere. And with your body, with your senses all tuned in right now, I want you just to send your awareness out onto the landscape and just notice where you're drawn to, where you're, if an image comes up or if a feeling comes up, but just notice and then see what mammal it may be. So I'm going to turn my sound off right now, so you won't be able to hear me, and we'll just sit here for 3 or 4 minutes and just allow your body to feel into that. I'll just interject here for a moment. So sometimes this can be really easy and it happens really quickly for some people, and for other people, they sort of wrestle with it. And if you're someone that wrestles with it, you're likely someone like myself who overthinks things too much sometimes. And so for the next little bit while we're practicing this, just pretend like you're 7 years old again and you're just playing. This is just a game. And you're just going to play and you're just going to see what you can find. So there's no attachment to getting it right or wrong. You're not going to mess anything up. You're just 7 and you're just having fun. Okay, so we'll go one layer deeper with this. And for those of you, whether you're able to perceive something or not, it doesn't matter. We're going to take this another layer deeper. So we're going to stick with mammal still. And this time, you can just ask the question, is there, or who would like to show themselves to me right now? And again, maybe it'll be physically, you'll actually see them, or maybe it will be just a sensation that you get. And so just put that question out there. Who wants to show themselves to me right now? And then ask them where they are. Like, where are you? How far away are you? And see what comes. Okay, nice work. So we will bring the birds into this in a little bit, but right now, just because I know some of you probably have some birds relatively close within eyesight or earshot. So this time we're going to go to another layer of the earth, and we're going to focus this time on the insects. And now this may be, yeah, I just want you to put your senses out there. You ask the question of like, what's the nearest insect to me in this moment? Even if it's wintertime, there are still insects under the bark and all that. And just see what comes up. You know, sometimes you might have an image that shows up for you. Maybe it's a little cocoon under a tree branch or something, and you can go check it out later. See if it's actually there. But just allow yourself to feel into the environment around you. And if you need to tap back into the senses, you can go back to your eyes, your ears, your nose, and then your own body. And just ask that question: where is the nearest insect to me right now? What is it doing? We'll stay in silence for the next 3 minutes or so. So sometimes, like I said before, this can seem a little crazy. Like, why are we listening for insects? How can we possibly do this? And it's all training, you know. Just remember the Karate Kid movie from back in the day with Mr. Miyagi having Danielson wax on, wax off, and he's like, "Why am I waxing cars? You know, I want to learn karate." It's like there's reasons for all this. So, in the process of listening for an insect, you know, maybe your ears tune in even more intently and you're able to hear a bird, you know. And just think about that sometimes as the birds are moving, like a woodpecker, as it's moving up a tree trunk, it's able to hear, it can hear the insects moving around in there. Yeah, it can pick up that sensation really subtle, or can feel it with its feet. And so I know we're not birds, but we can strengthen our instincts, we can strengthen our senses. So all right, now I know some of you have bird feeders or you're very close to some birds outside right now. And that's great. So, how about this? Because maybe not all of you have a raptor near you. So, I want you to do right now is send your awareness out into the landscape and see if you can find out where the nearest raptor is. Raptor being a hawk, some type of a hawk, a vulture, depends on where you are. You might even have condors near you. But anything in that sort of realm, even an owl, owl falls in the category of raptor. So just quiet yourself. And you can ask yourself where the nearest raptor is to you in this moment. And we'll stay quiet for the next 3 or 4 minutes. All right, nice work, everybody. So one thing I really like about the practice of trying to sense into the world around us is that, as we get older, some of us, our eyes, our ears, some of those other parts of our bodies start to not be as great as they used to be. And maybe some people were born with their eyes not being so strong, or, their ears not being able to hear in the same way that other people can hear. And so the beautiful part about using our bodies to feel is that that is something that pretty much, as far as I know, all of us can do. So it's a good thing to keep practicing. And I'll tell you one more story before I open it up for other people to share their experience this morning. And that is that I think some of you know who John Young is. Does anyone ever read his book, What the Robin Knows, or ever worked with him? Yeah. So years ago, I used to work, John Young used to run the school, the Wilderness Awareness School. He started it back in the day, and I was working for the school then and got to work with John directly. And back then we would do wolf tracking expeditions in Idaho. And this was the very first year they were going out to kind of scout the area out to find where our base camp was going to be. And John and a friend of mine who was, I don't know, he's probably in his 20s at the time, his name was Paul, they were driving in their car. It was like 2 in the morning. They got to Bear Valley, Idaho at like 2 in the morning, and they had heard there were wolves in the area. And they were like, all right, we'll just go find a place to like have base camp for the 30 participants that have signed up for this program. And anyway, so they're there, 2 in the morning. Paul's driving the car, this old beater car that he has, and it's dirt roads in Bear Valley, Idaho, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And John's asleep in the passenger seat. He's been asleep for a couple hours. And all of a sudden, he wakes up out of a dead sleep and he's like, stop the car. And Paul's like, what? Okay. So Paul stops the car and then he's like, get out and go look in front of the car. And so the lights are on, the high beams are shining on the road in front. Paul gets out and he looks on the road in front of them, and there are wolf tracks right there. And so that's just, John's an incredible example because he's someone who from the age of 10 years old had been trained by a mentor to do these kinds of things. So just imagine the more and more and more you practice, the more you're going to be able to feel into what's in the world around us. So that's why I had us do what we did today. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you need to go, you're welcome to head out now. Thank you everybody for joining on Facebook. But we are going to stick around and chat a little bit. So if anyone has a question on Facebook, you're welcome to type it in. Or if you are here with me on Zoom, you can just raise your hand and share. And I'd love to hear from anyone who, so again, like I've said before, of course I want to hear your stories from the week. But if anyone has a story about their experience this morning, like how was it for you to practice this morning? What was it like for you? And so just go ahead and raise your hand, and I'd love to hear your experience this morning. Yeah, go ahead, Joy.
Well, I'm afraid I got a little bit distracted at the beginning of the session because I'm sitting here enjoying the calmness and the quiet, and all of a sudden I see an ermine running around my yard. Yeah, and I have seen one here before a few years ago, but not recently, and it spent at least 5 minutes just running round and around up a tree, chased one of my pine squirrels into another tree, and then it went up onto the garage roof behind me and was just sort of peering out at me in a way. But what was interesting was it had the white face, it had the black tip to its tail. Its body was a bright yellow color. And I'm going to have to look that up, but I'm assuming, there's noise behind me. I'm assuming that it's in transition between winter and summer coats. But it almost looked like a child's stuffed toy, because it didn't look like a real animal in a way. I could imagine it being a battery operated toy or something like that. So I thought that was really interesting. It had gone by the time I was trying to trace where a mammal was. And I've got plenty of black squirrels running around here that I know exactly where they are all the time because I can hear them, their little footprints scrabbling on the snow. But So that's my story for this morning.
Dang, Joy. Wow. That's amazing. Well,
Yeah,
it sounds like you called in your mammal before before we
I
even got
did.
going. And
Yes, I
I would
did.
keep your ears peeled and eyes to what that where that J is going for right now, because I could hear the J and it sounds like it was hollering at something over there. So
Well,
maybe
I've got a feeder here next to me with the peanuts in it, and he's probably waiting for me to just be quiet and he'll come down.
it could be he could also be tracking that ermine because
Oh,
they
maybe. Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah,
keep your ears peeled for
I
that.
will do that. Yes.
Yeah, and does anyone not know what an ermine is? Just in case I love that you use that word because not everybody uses that word anymore. Anyone not know what an ermine is? Ermine is a weasel. It's a type. I forget if it's a long tail or short tail weasel. Do you know, Joy? Is it long or short tail?
It's long tail, and
Long tail.
the other name for it is a stoat.
Stoat. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, I'm not going to share anything about yeah, you said you're going to do some research on the coat coloration and that's
Yes.
awesome. That's exciting. Yeah. So I don't know. I have nothing else to say. That's just incredible that you got to see one this morning and they're not easy ones to spot. They're very sly, very quick and especially with their winter coat, of course. That's gorgeous. Not many people get to see them in their winter coat, so oh, awesome. Yeah. Okay, Suzanne, go for it.
Just follow up on the ermines. So they're the tips of their tails are black, and the classic illustrations of the robes that kings and queens would wear in the wintertime. They're white fur robes with little black dots. Those are ermine tails. Those are ermine fur coats. So there you go. There's your little fairy tale story. Um, Thank you for remembering the collective flock mind that woke me up last week to feed them. That was fun. And I wanted to just give a little humorous story here. I've got a platform feeder and a flock of at least 30 evening grosbeaks around me that just are all about this platform feeder. And I guess I'm privileged because Audubon says that 93% of evening grosbeak populations have disappeared since 1970. And some days I think that the remaining 7% are right here on my feeder.
Mhm.
Um, so I've also got some badass Stellar's jays that just think that they own everything. So there were like 20 evening grosbeaks on the platform feeder at one time the other day, and the Stellar's jay landed on the hook that the feeder hangs from,
Uh-huh.
and he landed up there with this like badass mohawk thing on his head, and he glared down at these evening grosbeaks and expected them, of course, to just fly off because everybody's afraid of the Stellar's jays. All 20 of these evening grosbeaks looked up at the same time with their big fat yellow beaks, and they glared back at this jay, and they gave him a look that was like, 4-letter words that I shouldn't say today, but basically it was like F off, Jacko. And I mean, I can tell you that evening grosbeaks can have expressions on their face. It was so funny. And this Stellar's jay looked so perplexed. He's like, what? Nobody ever talks back at me. And after a couple seconds, he flew off and into the cottonwoods and just waited for the grosbeaks to leave. I just thought that was hysterical because the looks on their faces. I mean, I was laughing totally by myself, laughing hysterically.
Feel like you're not I don't know if anyone watches the World Cup at all, anyone into soccer at all. I got really into it recently, but one of the really great players, his name is I forget his first name, but Messi is his last name, Messi. Argentina just won the World Cup. He plays for Argentina. He's actually one of the best players in the world anyway. But what's so cool about soccer is that you don't have to be tall or big or whatever. He's this short guy. He's like I think like 5'6" maybe or 5'7". He's not very big as far as like a soccer player goes, but he's just this like tough little guy, and it's just like no one messes with him. And you see him walk around, man, and he looks at people, and it's like an Italian mafia or something. He's intense. He's so fierce, and it's like when you describe the evening grosbeaks, I just imagine a bunch of like messies, like that. Oh, yeah, you think so, huh?
I don't think this Stellar's jay had ever been scared off of a feeder before.
Yeah,
New
yeah.
experience.
Good job, evening grosbeaks. Thanks, Suzanne, for that. That's rad. All right. Anyone else have a story they want to share from this morning? How your experience was listening in this other way? Even if you think it's something little, often it's bigger than you think. Yeah. Was that his hand over there? Sorry, I have a phone. Yeah, Julia, go ahead.
Well, it is a weather front has moved in and it's cold and it's very windy.
Uh-huh.
So it finally dawned on me that the squirrels, which are ubiquitous here, are all hunkered down in their nests. There are a lot of nests, squirrel nests in the trees around me, and so right now everything's just trying to stay out of the wind and stay warm. And so that was more about the environment and what they would be doing, but that's what came to me. So
Yeah, was that something like when you were thinking of mammals, was it the squirrel in the nest that came to you this morning? Is that
no,
kind of,
not first. I mean, I was just kind of trying to imagine. Of course, they're fairly active,
yeah,
um, and they're not active, and so I was a little puzzled. And then I thought,
yeah.
they're all curled up. Everybody's trying to stay warm.
That's great. And sometimes it's just nice just to sort of contemplate those things for a little bit, sort of ask ourselves and just wonder like, what is happening with everyone today? I know what I'd be doing on a day like today if I was like living outside, and yeah, so just kind of getting curious about like if I were an eagle right now, like where would I be? Or if I were a mole, where would I be? Or like a rabbit, and so just asking those questions of ourselves, and you'd be surprised how often you'll get a pretty good answer. Thanks, Troy. All right, anyone else have a story they want to share? Yeah, go ahead, Tracy. I was gonna say when I said no one else probably has a raptor.
Oh, right. I was waiting because I have a story from this morning and then I have a story from the week. So I was waiting till everyone was done for this morning. So my mammal was that all of the doves were out, and then our most hapless hunter, the neighbor's cat, came right as you were like, pay attention to the mammals. This big old fluffy beast who has never caught a single bird. And I've lived here for a year and a half and is awful at its job, which I'm glad because I don't want it to eat my birds. But it came, so I was paying attention because there were so many birds to how quickly they come back, because it's different for this cat versus the other cat that I've kind of adopted. And then the hawk that always comes around, it's like a different speed and they chat differently. So when it was the black and white cat who never catches anyone, they just sound more grumpy. They just sound more irritated. Like, you ruined our breakfast, man, and you didn't even like do anything good. He's just not. He just makes a mess. Like, he grabs feathers. He never actually gets anybody. He just kind of maims them. But I also have two of my favorite visitor hawk stories from the week. My Cooper's hawk.
Before you share the stories, I just want to pause for that for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think listening, I love that you talked about listening in that, like with that depth to how the birds respond to different
Yeah.
preferences, right? And that we can think like that birds have sort of a generic cat response, but when they start to get to know neighborhood cats, and they'll get to know the neighborhood cats, they behave differently because they learn like, oh, this one is a good hunter. We have to really watch out for that one. This one, like, he's old and doesn't really move so well. We don't have to watch out as carefully. Or, like that hawk that's in our tree, like so they're going to respond differently to all of them. And then we can start to tune into that and sort of,
Yeah. It's really, really helping me learn because they respond differently to my dog because she's like 12 years old and she's old and slow. And so they barely like move off because they know her and they will get fairly close. So I can tell if it's her at the door versus if it's like the cat coming around the corner, even with my eyes closed now. So it's kind of cool. So thank you for the practice. I really, really dig it. Yeah. And then real quick, I follow a local bird photographer guy named Mike Henry, and he had posted a picture of a Cooper's hawk around the neighborhood the other day, and it's kind of gross, but he'd never posted a poop picture before. And I didn't know they pooped so much all at once. I don't know if it's all the raptors, but at least this Cooper's hawk. And so the juvenile one was up on his favorite post the other day right across from my yard, and he let out like these two like strangled cries, which made me look up because I wasn't paying attention. And he pooped more than I think could be ever humanly possible for a bird before. And I was like, man, that's like gonna be my new like curse on someone. Like, may you be under a Cooper's hawk poop, because it was terrifying. Like, do they all? It sounds gross, but do they always poop a lot? Like, it's not. It's just like streams of poop all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you actually were seeing, so I can't say like yes or no, but yeah, is it white? It was a big white.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, like
yeah,
lots.
yeah, yeah, especially after they eat something, and so there can be that I'm forgetting uric acid. It's like a uric acid.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
he
there
had like
is your
such an
comment.
upset stomach. Poor guy. He really
Oh,
like sounded like he
it's
was
not.
like, oh,
That's normal. That's normal for what they
is
do.
it?
And that's actually a way that you can tell there's certain raptors will nest in cliffs, and that's a great
Yeah.
way to find a cliff nesting raptor, like a peregrine, for instance, is just look, they call it whitewash, is you just look up on the cliff and you look at the
Oh,
whitewash, which is all the poop
yeah.
that's, kind of
Oh,
on the cliff, right? So that's yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's so cool. And then the 2 days before, he still hasn't caught anybody that I've seen, but he flew through the yard. The closest he'd gotten before was like 2 feet over to my right. This
Uh,
time he almost pegged me in the head. It's like it's gonna happen. It's either gonna be he or the doves that he keeps chasing off this direction, because it was a foot away, and like it's gonna happen, and I'm gonna be excited. I'm gonna have a head injury, and I'm gonna be like laughing and delighted because it's thrilling. It's absolutely thrilling to be that close to him and just like whoosh, just yeah. So I'm like yelling at my kids, like, he's gonna peg me in the head, and it's awesome.
well, be careful.
Right, right. I hope he doesn't. But it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
fascinating that he keeps hunting through the yard, and he's not having any luck. But he is such a neat fellow to get to know. It's really quite thrilling.
Awesome, Tracy. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
I love the
yeah,
updates on your Coopers. And yeah, it reminds me when I was sitting and we took you all through the practice. I think it was the moment when had you listening for insects. And so I really quieted myself and was trying to listen deeply. Like, could I hear them in the tree? Like if I was a woodpecker right now, could I hear the insect in the tree? And what was awesome was that I actually thought I could hear something. I don't know if it was or not, but what I heard, because I was listening so carefully, I actually could hear before they even got over my head to where I could see them, I could hear the wing beats of some crows coming. And I don't know if I would have been as attuned to them if I wasn't listening really for like insects in that moment. So yeah, so well done. Like now that you're saying you can hear the wing beats of
yeah.
the crows and stuff. So
I
that's
love this practice. Thank you, Kristi. I love this practice because then I do it all week, and I share it with my kids, and it's like if they come outside, I'm like, hey, close your eyes. What do you think? And I was talking to my 11-year-old is autistic, so we've been talking about like sensing the insects under the ground and the movement and the rocks and the dirt, and it's just been a really fun one to get to share with her. So super duper rad, and thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for sharing that, Tracy. Marcia Lynn, did you put your hand up? Or you just okay? Maybe you're in a boat and you were just awesome. All right. Anyone else have a story before we head out? We have time for one more if you want to share. Okay. Oh yeah, Suzanne, you have a story.
Well, I just have a question. Somewhere in this last week, I can't remember where, I learned that juncos lose overnight 7% of their body fat,
Mhm.
um, which is, I get this an equivalent to a human losing like 11 pounds.
Mhm.
And so the article is, I forget where it was now, but it was about how
Audubon or
birds,
something. I saw that. Yeah.
what's that?
I think it was
It was,
Audubon or New York Times or something. I saw that as well. Yeah.
yeah, about how birds are constantly living on the verge of starvation, and that's the trade-off they make to be light enough to fly.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't know, that's just stuck with me all week long, and it's just like hurts my heart that they essentially wake up every morning starving.
Mhm.
Is that true all year round? Is that just winter? Is that
I've never measured the birds and their weight and all that stuff and follow that, so I can't say 100% for sure like what the quantity is, but I do know that this is often one of the reasons that I encourage people not to do pitching or using playback with bird vocalizations, because there were some terrible studies done in like the 20s and 30s by some researchers who wanted to see how long birds would live if they didn't have any food, so they starved birds. And they got to, you know, see at different temperatures, but the most striking was like at 0 degrees how long like a small, they used the house sparrow, so how long and try and guess, y'all, like how long do you think a house sparrow would live without any food at 0 degrees?
Hours, couple
Yeah,
hours.
it was like 12 hours or something like that. It was not much time at all. So if it couldn't get food for 12 hours, that bird would be dead in like by the next morning. So it is really like on the verge there, but don't feel bad for it. You know, think about my teacher of mine always said, he's like, don't feel bad for the wild, you know. He's like, don't put them down below you in a sense. I'm not saying you're doing that, but that's sort of like he was very fierce with us in this moment. He was like, he's like, they're warriors out there, you know. They know what they're doing. They're like, they've made that choice to be, you know, in that form in life. And so honor them, you know. Think of like how courageous that is to live that life, and how incredible that is to live that life. And it's true. And I think all of us humans at some point in our history had that experience too, you know. If you think of like Bushmen and their traditional, like, you know, maybe old school Bushmen, maybe not as much today, but their bodies are designed to it's like the feast and famine kind of a thing. And so we all have had that experience in somewhere in our ancestry of what it's like to, you know, to not have enough, and what that does, you know. Anyway, that's a whole different kind of a thing, but it is interesting to think about. And I think so it's important to keep in mind that when we're out there watching birds, not to sort of feel like we're always, you know, making a mess of things, though I know sometimes people can do that, but just to be aware of like when we're calling birds in, we want to see them sort of, you know, who is that benefiting? You know, is that for their benefit? Is that for our benefit? And what's the toll if we were to use those, you know, like the playback or the pitching and whatnot? And when's that appropriate? When's it maybe not appropriate? So it's just something to think about. And thinking that, knowing that information, like how long, you know, that birds need to feed as often as they can, you know. So when we get in there and we disturb that for a little bit, and we're like, I want to see you, so I'm going to call you up, you know, and make you come up and stop your feeding for a little while. Anyway, if you do it out in the middle of nowhere, it's probably not as big of a deal. But if you do it in a really commonly birded area, that can have a lot of impact, because if you're doing it, someone else is doing it, someone else is doing it, you know. So anyway, just something to think about. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Suzanne. I see, sorry, Julia, you've got your hand raised over there.
So this being the holiday season, are you going to take a break, or are you going to keep going every week?
Great question. Yeah, so is it next week is the day after Christmas?
Yes.
Okay, so next week we won't have a bird sit, but then I'll get back. I think after that, it's gonna be like the 2nd of January or something like that. So we'll be back on after that. So yeah, next week we're gonna take the week off, but you can still get out there and sit if you want to. I'd love to hear your Christmas stories or your Hanukkah stories. I know first day of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah to everyone celebrating that, and whatever other celebrations you have. Solstice is coming up soon too, so yeah, so yeah, thanks for asking. It's a great question, Julia. We'll be taking next week off. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for coming. Thanks everybody on Facebook for joining us. We have a nice crew over here, and thanks everybody here on Zoom. And if I have any other updates, I'll send you a message. You might get the reminder. I'll do my best to turn that off, but sometimes it's a lot harder to stop the whole process of the reminders coming out. So you might get the reminder for next week, but I'll probably send a note to say it's canceled, ignore the reminder. So just remember that, ignore, yeah, I'm saying ignore next week's reminder. And then, yeah, that's all. So have a beautiful holiday season, everybody. Stay safe and
Thank you,
healthy.
Christy.
Feel the
Happy
generosity.
Christmas, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Take care.
yeah.
I'll see you in 2 weeks. Be
Yay.
well.
See you,
Happy
everybody.
holidays.
Bye, bye, bye.
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 Bye.